So I have three thoughts before I have 3 points. And so my first thought is the trouble with being in trouble is we often don't know we're in trouble, even though we're in trouble. And I like alliteration. I like how things feel when I say them, and you might think it's nonsensical, but actually you're in bigger trouble when you don't realize you're in trouble. And I thought, well, some pictures would be good is that, well, you're about to meet trouble. And perhaps we've had a child or children who've done that. I don't know if she's in trouble. I want to help her, but she has a steely face, and so I think she can do it. And let's go. This one, I really don't want to help. I think it's ill-advised, and I would say, young boy, if your colleague has a bad day at the office, well, your day is terrible. This one I've been analyzing, and I don't know about the rocks that are coming off. I don't know if the person's going in the right direction. I also wonder whether or not the person is wondering if they bought strong enough rope. So I'm hoping. Thank God for the men and women who are brave enough who go into a burning building and perhaps, save men, women, and children. This one gives me a certain amount of glee that they perhaps don't know they're in trouble, but they're in trouble. I love the fact that they might have someone called Mr. Love, and it's going to be a precipitous drop, and then they will realize how the rest of the league lives. So welcome trouble, but also I've been a Vikings fan for 58 years, and we're in trouble too. And so I want to flesh this out according to gambling.com, which I did not know about. I just simply read, and it came to me. The angriest fan base is the Minnesota Vikings fan base. It's fact, because a gambling.com site wouldn't lie. But here's a picture, and that is us. Is that not your face? Is that not your countenance? Look at her. She's thinking, I could have spent that money on Taylor Swift concert tickets. In the backdrop, look at the general malaise. It's like they're going and listening to a sermon. That's point number one. Point number two is thought more and more people seem to be reluctant to ask for help. And the trouble is if you don't ask for help. I think it's a perceived sense of weakness. Parents, we have to be careful when we have little kids and we tell them when to ask for help and when not. We want them to be independent. We want them to find their own answers. You know what? As an old person who helps people for 30 years, strong people have the ego strength to say, I need help. And when people come and see me or the therapist or they go and see the attorney or mitigation, it's usually later than it should be. It's like you and I going in for a physical. Or when our left side gets numb, we for some reason believe, I can do it myself. We need help many times, especially from Jesus, but also from people with flesh on it. And B, as a whole, people seem to be less apt to help other people. As I watch, and I am always watching people, that there's this kind of almost, I don't want to help you because I don't know you, and I don't know if I agree with you, and I don't know if I know how you live or I agree with it, instead of, do you need some help? And so, summarily, why be vulnerable and be rejected in one fell swoop? So these are my thoughts before my points. And number three, I think we think that if we know more, we will be better. We will do better. Life will be better. But here's the thing, is our biggest problems have very little to do with matters of intellect. Instead, the most pressing issues we face today are matters of heart and soul. If you have an iPhone, in your pocket, in your hand, you have a computer. I'm old enough, we had an Encyclopedia Britannica. Remember those things that some person would come along and sell them and you would look it up and you know that it was 15 years old when you were reading it. But kindness is what I think we're lacking in this place called America. People know better. Even if you have a little bit of understanding of history, of how we've treated people and mistreated people, it's not whether or not we know. It's a matter of whether or not we want to do better and whether or not we care. We need to care more, be kind more. But That's just what I think. You pay me to think and you pay me to talk. But why don't we just focus on what God thinks and wants? Number one is the rest of the story. My father was the driver in the family, especially after my mom got multiple sclerosis, and he had a rule that whenever he drove, he got to pick whatever we would listen to on the radio. And my father grew up in Winnipeg as a farmer, and so WCCO was on. The Cannon mess was fine because Steve Cannon would have these little things that were great, but then WCCO, in case you don't know, and your life has been great, they have the farm report. And my father, even though he was a Lutheran pastor, would go back to his Winnipeg farming days and, oh, there's a soybean report. Dude, you're a pastor. You have a garden. I don't even know what soybeans are. Or here's the milk futures. And he would want to hear that. And as I was a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old, I was praying for an accident. And then he would put in a cassette tape, and some of you don't know, Roger Whittaker? Anyone know Roger Whittaker? Oh, yes, you like him. You should have been me. My dad has always been hard of hearing because he was on a tractor his entire life, so he would buy a Honda, and then he would spend $3,000 on an aftermarket, and he would turn it up. Anne Murray and Helen Reddy. And then he went through a Julio Iglesias phase. And then Julio Iglesias did a duet with Willie Nelson. And I'm like, can you slow down? Because I want to jump out the window. There are many kinds of suffering. It'll be fine. I was a wrestler. I could tumble. But then I thought of this, and this is my 31st Easter sermon. So, you can't change the end of the story, and you got to keep it creative. And I thought about all the stuff I went through with my dad and his music, and then I thought there was a segment by a guy named Paul Harvey. And if you're me, near 60, you probably know. For 57 years, he was on public radio and he was in the newspaper, and he was brilliant, he or somebody else, and there was a segment called Rest of the Story. And then he would say, you all know this event. When we come back, because they had to pay him a lot of money, I'll tell you the rest of the story. So that's point number one. I'll tell you the rest of the story. By the way, today's Easter. If you didn't know when you came, it's Easter, which we celebrate when Jesus came back to life. And because he died, we're forgiven. Because he rose, he extends to us eternal life. But here's the rest of the story. The Garden of Eden. We're going to go through the entire Bible. This is the last service today. I have a bunch of Italians in my household because I married an Italian coming here. I have to set up chairs and entertain, so I'm going to go through the Bible, okay? We're starting at Genesis 3. Actually, I did this the last 3 times I preached. But the Garden of Eden, after creation, they had everything in a place to put it. Rent-free, long before property taxes, insurance, no HOA. How great is that? One rule, don't eat from that one tree. That one over there that looks really, how'd they do? Terrible. They got evicted, and because of it, we die. You're 3 chapters in, and it turns ugly. See, I'm going through the Bible. Cain and Abel, brothers, just 2 of them. They didn't even have to share a room. No matter what, they both made the team. Hockey tryouts. How'd you do? Double A. How about you? Me too. We're awesome. Actually, we're the entire team. In other words, whole world, don't have to share, but Cain was not able to handle his brother, so he killed him. Noah and the ark were in chapter 6. By the 6th chapter, God says, Control, Alt, Delete. I'm going to start over. Floods, everything, animals, one family. After the flood, God frees Israel, gives them and us the Ten Commandments, and speaks to them and us through prophets. No matter what God tried, the children of God messed it up. So God sent Jesus, God in the flesh. Surely the people of God get it right. Because if you know, and there was an oral tradition, if you know, right? If you're smart enough, did you see what happened to them? Maybe we should do better, right? Jesus performs miracles. He cares for the poor. He champions those who are forgotten or marginalized by current political and religious leaders. How in the world could they mess this up? Well, very well, actually. So why didn't God save and restore humankind right from the very beginning? You're about to get smarter. St. Thomas Aquinas, my Catholic brother, I looked at Martin Luther, but nothing really fit with my sermon, so I just decided to get ecumenical. And this is a great Catholic thinker. Since the work of the Incarnation, parenthetical Jesus, is principally ordained to the restoration of the human race by blotting out sin, it is manifest that it was not fitting for God to become incarnate at the beginning of the human race before sin. For medicine is given only to the sick. Aquinas continues, love does not delay to aid a friend, yet with a care for the right timing and for personal conditions. If a doctor were to give medicine to one who was ill at the very beginning of the sickness, it would be of less value or could even do more harm than good. So also does the Lord not immediately provide the Incarnation as a remedy, lest it be spurned out of pride before humans recognize their own weakness. You picking up what I'm laying down? God just didn't make this up. The entire Bible from beginning to end is a love story where God tries and says, here you go, give it a shot, and we break it. And God says, I'll put it back together again and give it another shot. You're going to hear a song after I'm done, and it's going to be the best part of your day. When I was driving down the road, I heard this song and I thought, oh, that's my sermon. If you don't know that today it's about rescue story, go have yourself checked. But here's the song, part of the lyrics. You were writing the pages before I had a name, before I needed grace, singing songs of redemption every time I ran away. You were louder than my shame. Here's what I'm saying is, the book of God and God's people began a long time ago, long before you and I even came into this world. That's what God does. Loves and saves. Point number 2, not a one-time thing. This is my favorite. I have a couple favorite verses. Obviously John 3:16, be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. This one I love because it to me tells what I can expect in Jesus. Do you read about what's happening in the country, or you want to watch the news? If you're having a good day, I suggest maybe watch a rerun of a sitcom. And then the people upon whom we rely, different sermon. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. What I'm simply saying, it's not a one-time thing that Jesus went, ta-da, and then said, I'm going to be in Bermuda. If you need my help, come and get me. Now, how many people here, and it's weird, it's different service and different people. How many here have not seen this movie? Please raise your hand. Okay, it seems to be this kind of side thing. Okay, if you don't want to hear what I say, you'll never hear me say this again, okay? If you don't want to hear about this movie, you can plug your ears, because I don't want to ruin it. But I don't know why haven't you watched this movie? It's so great. In fact, I am not kidding. I have seen this probably in total entirety 40 times. My 3 children will come through and my wife will say, did you experience a blow to the head? Because you watch this. Well, Tom Hanks, I think, can read the phone book and I'll watch. But there's something about this, and I thought, this is my point too. And you're like, okay, Lillard, tie this somehow. Well, you ready? And again, if you don't want to have, spoiler alert, plug your ears. But he's going to ask his girlfriend to marry him, and for some reason gives her towels. Not a good move. So he goes on an airplane and becomes a castaway. Okay, you with me? Okay. But the only reason he stays alive is because he has a little picture and he wants to get back and be with the love of his life. But when he gets back, she, for every reason up here, thinks he's dead, and so she moves on. And what you see in the second part of the movie is the fact that he was hoping that once he got back, his life would be great. And it's not. What's my point? Even if you live with a risen Christ, it doesn't mean your life is going to be without toil and pain and suffering. In fact, Jesus said, expect it. When Jesus said from the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me? People think he lapsed in faith. No, he trusted in God. That's why he can say, why did you forsake me? The same stuff that happens to someone who doesn't believe happens to us. Then we wonder, why does that happen to us? Because is that how you take care of your team? Is that how you treat your fan base? Well, that's about as good as a football team that I admire. And then Jesus says, you know what? Take up your cross and follow me. You know what? Blessed are the poor. And if someone slaps you, turn the other side, and you love your enemies. You're like, life's hard enough. Now, this is the payoff. You see the castaway? And at the end, he takes that package, and I wanted him to fall in love. And then he goes to those crossroads, and then they end the movie. You're like, come on. That's our life. This way, that way, this way, and sometimes we're just on a roundabout. And the risen Lord, with all his power and love and mercy, is following you in all of your doctor visits and all of your doubts and all of your parenting and all of your marriage and all of your struggles and all of your fears. It's not a one-time thing. So, there I was empty-handed, crying out from the pit of my despair. There you were in the shadows, holding out your hand. You met me there. You were the voice in the desert, calling me out in the dead of the night, fighting my battles for me. You are my rescue story. All the things you've made it through in your life, you think it's just because you're tough and resilient? Somebody probably came along and said, how can I help you? Jesus sent that person. Might have been your mom, might have been your dad. You and I can go through what we can go through because we know that there's a purpose, there's a promise, and even if we don't make it, we get to go with our loved ones in heaven. There's always hope. Not a one-time thing. Point number 3, we're almost done. Those of you who are old like me, this is a Stanley thermos. And you had one of these and you pour it full of coffee. My dad would go and he'd pour bad Folgers coffee in there and he'd go over to his study at the church and he would stay there until it got cold or it was empty and he came home. And then what happened? Stanley became cool. This is the Stanley Quencher. Well, here's the deal, is that Stanley's sales grew by 275% in 2021. You know why? Because some influencer on TikTok said, you got to get yourself one of these Stanley. You got to get one of these because it's going to make your life better. And everyone bought one. In fact, right before one of our kids' birthday, we went over to Shields, you know, that little sporting goods store is over there. We were like, do you have any Stanley Quenchers? And she said, no, but we have 5,000 Yetis that we haven't sold because now everyone wants a Stanley. Why? Because some influencers, and I want that job because I want to tell people what they should do. Pay me millions of dollars. We don't even know who these people are. The non-disposable drinkware business was nearly $9 billion in 2021. You got to get one. You got to get one. Now, it's better than using plastic. I get that. But can you help me? I'm 100% Norwegian, so I can't reconcile these two things. Wait for it. You got it? Ironically, according to the lay press, 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated. I don't know if this is live streamed. Give me a thumbs up. Is it or not? It is. Okay, then I won't say that. But there's a certain person in my life that sees something on TikTok, and maybe this person says, we got to go to the dollar store because everyone needs it. And so we go to $5 stores, and every single one is sold out. Why? Because we waited 2 hours to go after we saw a TikTok. We are influenced by people. But we're dehydrated because if you have a water vessel and you put water in it, and if you don't put it down your throat, then you're not hydrated. If you believe in Jesus, but you don't try earnestly to live out your faith in daily life, then you are a vessel that's full of liquid but not utilized. If you and I belong to a health club, but we never go work out, we are a water bottle that we don't drink from. If you and I know that our risen Lord is always there to lean on in prayer, but we don't pray until all the things we think we can do and is our last resort, we are chronically dehydrated. You follow? And it ends up on TikTok, and then everyone has to have it. You know what? I think we're chronically dehydrated, but you know what? We need more than water. We need Jesus. And the older this guy gets, and the last landing strip that I have, the more that I think at times, especially Lutherans, we're reticent to talk about our faith. My father told me that faith is personal, but not private. You understand the difference? It's personal, not private. Everyone in this congregation, all 7,000 people told me, have you seen Top Gun? Have you seen the new movie? And I'm like, I have to see it. Or if I go to a restaurant, you say, you got to go. Or this destination spot. How often do you and I tell people that Jesus is my rescue story? And since I just have to go home and set up chairs, I got one more thing I want to say. I'll give you the Cliff Note edition, which got me through Augsburg University. When we say we are people of faith and we testify, we don't judge. We don't talk about their behavior. We don't tell them they're doing something wrong. We don't say, Jesus is coming back and boy, he's ticked and actually he's going to visit you. It's not about how they live, what they do, the choices they make, who they love. It's none of that. We're in sales, not management. When I bury someone, I listen to the loved ones. I don't make any judgments. And I don't want someone making judgments about me. Do you want someone making judgments of you? And you and I get some things right, but it's amazing if you're married, you know that your spouse gets a number of things right, but they get a number of things wrong. Which one do you want to focus on? There are enough Christians that don't encapsulate what I think the kernel of Lutheranism is that Jesus died for you and you don't have to do anything. You don't have to live a certain way. You don't have to believe because what I've told you, and I'll keep you here until I convince you because I have work to do at home. The entire Bible is one narrative with a different context and different people, places, and things. We are told we can't follow. God forgives us, redeems us, and says, go and try again. There I was, there you were, you never gave up on me, you never gave up on me, you never gave up on me. I'm on to this 3 thing, this is my testimony. You are my rescue story. So, now you know the rest of the story. Now you know the risen Lord is always with you, and now you know what you're called to say. You got to get yourself one of those Stanleys, if that's what you believe in. Got to really see Top Gun. That restaurant down there is really good. Oh, and one more thing. Jesus is my rescue story. This old dude redeems me, gives me wonderful things in life. And even sometimes when I get off track, Jesus says, okay, let me rescue you. In the meantime, enjoy the gift of the resurrection. And if nothing else, just be kind. Be as kind as Jesus is kind to you. Which is why we can say, Happy Easter. Happy Easter. You are my rescue story. Number 2. One more time with feeling. 1, 2, 3. You are my rescue story. This group needs some help. And Jesus will help you. Amen.